The final solution did not begin with gas chambers or mass deportations, but with a series of warning signs so gradual, so normalized, and so deliberately disguised that millions failed to recognize where they were leading. And understanding these early signals is essential to grasping how one of history's greatest crimes became possible. The first warnings appeared years before World War II, rooted in ideology rather than violence, when Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party openly promoted racial hierarchy, anti-Semitism, and conspiracy theories blaming Jews for Germany's defeat in World War I, economic hardship, and social decline. Ideas that were not hidden but broadcast through speeches, newspapers, school curricula, and mass rallies, conditioning the public to see an entire group not as neighbors or citizens, but as a dangerous problem to be solved. This rhetoric was quickly reinforced by legal discrimination, as Jewish professionals were pushed out of civil service, universities, and cultural life, signaling that the state now defined citizenship by race rather than law. And when the Nuremberg Laws of 1935 stripped Jews of their rights, banned intermarriage, and legally defined who was Jewish based on ancestry, it marked a critical warning sign: the transformation of prejudice into state-enforced exclusion. Another major indicator was the systematic dehumanization of Jews through propaganda, portraying them as vermin, disease carriers, or parasites, language that made violence psychologically easier by removing individuality and empathy, while constant repetition numbed society to cruelty. Economic isolation followed, with Jewish businesses boycotted, seized, or Aryanized, leaving families impoverished and dependent, a step that not only weakened resistance, but normalized the idea that Jews existed outside the moral protection of society. The escalation continued with social segregation. Jews barred from parks, schools, public transportation, and eventually forced to wear identifying badges, turning neighbors into visible targets and training the population to accept unequal treatment in everyday life. One of the most glaring warning signs came with Kristallnacht in November 1938, when synagogues were burned, businesses destroyed, Jews beaten or killed, and tens of thousands arrested, all while police were ordered not to intervene, demonstrating that mass violence was now tolerated, even encouraged by the state. Yet the absence of widespread consequences signaled to perpetrators that far worse actions would go unpunished. Another critical warning sign was the bureaucratization of persecution, as detailed records were kept of Jewish property, ancestry, and movement, showing that violence was no longer spontaneous, but planned, categorized, and administered, a chilling indicator of future mass murder. The outbreak of war further radicalized policy, with ghettos established in occupied territories under the guise of resettlement, where Jews were confined, starved, and subjected to disease, conditions that served both as testing grounds and as psychological preparation for mass death. Language itself became a warning sign, as euphemisms like evacuation, special treatment, and resettlement to the east replaced explicit violence, masking intent while enabling participation by officials who could claim ignorance. The Einsatzgruppen mobile killing units marked another unmistakable escalation, carrying out mass shootings of Jews in Eastern Europe in front of local populations, revealing that genocide had already begun before extermination camps existed. Equally important was the silence or compliance of institutions, courts enforcing racist laws, doctors participating in forced sterilizations, railways transporting victims, businesses profiting from confiscated property, showing how ordinary systems can enable extraordinary crimes. Perhaps the most dangerous warning sign of all was normalization, the slow adjustment to each new step until what once seemed unthinkable became routine, allowing society to cross moral lines incrementally rather than all at once. By the time the Wannsee Conference formalized the final solution in 1942, the groundwork had already been laid through years of exclusion, dehumanization, legal oppression, violence, and bureaucratic efficiency, making genocide not a sudden rupture, but the final stage of a process visible to anyone willing to look. Understanding these warning signs is not merely about history, but about recognizing how mass atrocities begin, not with camps, but with words, laws, indifference, and the quiet erosion of empathy, reminding us that the final solution was not inevitable, but enabled, step by step, by a society that failed to stop the warning signs when there was still time to do so.